Hey there, welcome. I'm here to help you relax tonight. So before you get too cozy, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It really makes us feel like the global community it is. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's begin our evening together. Story 2. Beneath the Willow Tree. Liam wasn't just charming. He was a gravitational force. When he walked into a room, everything and everyone seemed to orbit around him, basking in the warmth of his attention. I was no different. Our love story felt like a fairy tale, written in the stars and whispered by fate itself. He remembered the anniversary of our first meeting down to the minute. He could recall my coffee order before I even opened my mouth. He knew I hated the sound of polystyrene and loved the smell of rain on hot asphalt. He made me feel seen in a way I never had before. The first crack in the porcelain appeared 6 months in. I was offered a promotion, a dream job that would require me to travel occasionally. I came home, bursting with excitement, ready to celebrate. His smile didn't quite reach his eyes. "That's wonderful, my love," he said, pulling me into a hug that felt a little too tight. "But who will take care of you on the road? Who will make sure you eat? You know how you get when you're stressed." The celebration dinner turned into a gentle, logical dissection of all the reasons the job was a bad idea. By the end of the night, I was the one apologizing for being so thoughtless, for not considering how my ambition might affect us. That was his magic. He never yelled. He never demanded. He reasoned. He made his control feel like protection. His jealousy was a sign of devotion. His isolation of me from friends was him curating a peaceful environment for us. He framed every restriction as a sacrifice he was making for my well-being. "I canceled the guy's night to stay with you. You seem down today." The guilt was a more effective prison than any lock. The willow tree was our spot, an ancient, weeping willow on the banks of the river at the edge of town. He'd proposed to me there under a blanket of stars. It was where we went to talk things through, which always meant me talking until I saw things his way. The gentle sway of its branches felt like a benediction on his twisted logic. The catalyst was a text message from an old college friend, Mark. "Hey, heard you're in town. Bunch of us are grabbing drinks Friday. You in?" I'd mentioned it to Liam, a casual, happy thing. His face went very still. "Mark? The one who had a crush on you sophomore year." He said it softly, like he was just trying to place the name. That Friday, I came down with a sudden, violent stomach flu. Or so I thought. I spent the night vomiting, while Liam held my hair back, his touch tender, his eyes cold. "See," he murmured, "your body knows you need to rest. It knows what's best for you, even when you don't." I found the empty packet of ipecac syrup in the outside trash can the next morning. The discovery of the ipecac syrup packet was a silent detonation. It wasn't an accusation, it was a fact. A small, plastic piece of evidence that shattered the beautiful, gilded cage he'd built around me. The vomit-induced agony, his soothing presence, it was all a performance. A meticulously staged play to keep me in my place. I confronted him. The words tumbled out of me, sharp and terrified. I held up the crumpled packet like a weapon. He didn't deny it. He didn't get angry. He looked hurt, deeply, profoundly wounded. His shoulders slumped, and he ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair. "You think I wanted to do that?" he asked, his voice thick with emotion. "You think I enjoyed seeing you in pain? I did it to protect you." That guy, Mark. I looked him up. He has a history, a temper. I saw the way he looked at you in old photos. I was terrified of what might happen if you went. I couldn't lose you. I acted out of love. A desperate, stupid love. He sold the lie with every fiber of his being. The tears in his eyes were real. The tremor in his voice was masterful. And for a horrifying moment, I felt the old programming kick in. The urge to comfort him, to apologize for making him resort to such extremes. But the memory of the nausea was too raw. The taste of bile was still a ghost in my mouth. This wasn't love. This was possession. This was madness. I said nothing. I just stared at him, and for the first time, I saw the puppet master behind the charming facade. I saw the calculation in his wet eyes. I packed a bag that afternoon while he was at the store. My hands shook so badly I could barely zip it shut. I didn't take much, just essentials. I left the jewelry he'd given me, the books he'd inscribed with loving messages. I wanted no relics of this life. I drove to a motel on the other side of town, a dingy place that paid cash and asked no questions. I blocked his number. I felt a sliver of hope, brittle and sharp. I'd done it. I'd gotten out. The first night was spent in a state of high alert, jumping at every car door slam, every footstep in the hallway. But nothing happened. The second night, exhaustion overtook me, and I fell into a deep, dreamless sleep. I was woken on the third morning by a gentle tapping on my motel room door. Not a police knock. A familiar, rhythmic tap. Shave and a haircut. His signature knock. My blood ran cold. I crept to the door and looked through the peephole. Liam stood there, holding 2 cardboard coffee cups from my favorite place. He was smiling, easy and relaxed, as if he'd just popped over to a friend's house. He held up 1 cup. "I got you your latte. Extra shot, oat milk. I know you need the caffeine after the week you've had." He'd found me. He wasn't angry. He wasn't pleading. He was just there, as if my escape had been a minor misunderstanding, a silly little game of hide and seek that was now over. The normalcy of it was the most terrifying thing of all. I didn't open the door. I stood frozen, my forehead pressed against the cool wood, listening to his calm, patient breathing on the other side. "Come on, sweetheart," he said, his voice muffled but perfectly clear. "Let's not be dramatic. I brought you coffee. We can talk. I know you're scared. I understand. My methods were extreme. I admit that. I'm here to apologize." Methods. He made it sound like a flawed business strategy, not poisoning. "Go away, Liam," I whispered, my voice cracking. "I'll call the police." He laughed softly, a warm, affectionate sound that made my skin crawl. "And tell them what? That your fiancé brought you coffee? They'll laugh you out of the precinct. Now, open the door. It's chilly out here, and your latte is getting cold." I slid down the door to the floor, pulling my knees to my chest. I was trapped. He was right. The police couldn't help me. He hadn't technically done anything illegal. He was just a persistent man with a coffee cup. After a few minutes of silence, I heard a soft rustling. An envelope slid under the door. It was thick, cream-colored, expensive. On the front, he'd written my name in his elegant script. With trembling hands, I picked it up and tore it open. It wasn't a letter. It was a sheaf of photographs. The first few were of me, entering the motel office, unloading my bag from the car, taken from a distance with a long lens. He'd been watching me the whole time. The next few were of my parents, working in their garden 2 states away. My sister, pushing her kids on a swing in a park I'd never been to. The dates and times were stamped in the corner. They were all taken yesterday. The last photo was of the willow tree. Our willow tree. Someone had carved words into its ancient trunk. The carving was fresh, the raw wood stark against the gray bark. Omnia vincit amor. Love conquers all. The message was clear. My flight had been an illusion. My world was still his. He could reach anyone I loved, anywhere. My prison had no walls because the entire world was my cell, and he was the warden. A new text message buzzed on my phone, which was still on the floor beside me. It was from an unknown number. "Unknown, the coffee's cold now. I'll get you a fresh one tomorrow. We have our session under the tree at sunset. Don't be late. We have so much to discuss about the wedding. I've already booked the venue." The door to my motel room was unlocked. I'd never heard him turn the key, but I knew, with a certainty that turned my bones to ice, that if I tried the handle, it would be locked from the outside. Sunset found me standing under the weeping willow. The air was cool, and the river flowed past, indifferent to my terror. I'd come because the alternative, what he might do to my family if I didn't, was unthinkable. He had redefined my courage. It was no longer the courage to leave. It was the courage to stay, to endure, to protect others from the monster I'd unleashed. He was already there, waiting. He'd laid out a picnic blanket. A wicker basket was open, revealing cheese, fruit, and a bottle of my favorite wine. He looked up as I approached, his smile beatific. "You came." he said, as if there had ever been any doubt. He patted the spot on the blanket next to him. I knew you'd see reason. I didn't sit. I stood before him, my arms crossed, a pathetic attempt at a defense. What do you want, Liam? I want my fiancée back, he said simply, pouring a glass of wine and handing it to me. I didn't take it. He shrugged and set it down on the blanket. I want us to move past this hiccup. I've already forgiven you. Your flight was a moment of weakness. I should have anticipated it. I failed you. He was apologizing. Again, reframing his abuse as his own failure to control me completely. I'm not marrying you, I said, the words tasting like ash. Of course you are, he replied, his voice gentle, reasonable. He reached into the picnic basket and pulled out a small, velvet box. He opened it. The ring inside was new, larger, more expensive, a glaring diamond surrounded by smaller stones that looked like tiny, frozen tears. The other one was tainted by all this unpleasantness. This one is a fresh start. He held it out to me. The setting sun caught the diamond, throwing off brilliant, cruel shards of light. This is insane, I whispered, taking a step back. His smile didn't falter, but his eyes cooled by several degrees. Is it? Let's talk about sanity, then. Let's talk about your mother's little gardening habit. The special fertilizer she uses. The one that isn't exactly legal in this state. A simple anonymous tip to the local sheriff, and her peaceful retirement becomes rather complicated, doesn't it? He took a sip of his wine, watching me over the rim of the glass. Or your sister. Her ex-husband is still quite bitter, isn't he? I'm sure he'd be very interested in some fabricated evidence, suggesting she's an unfit mother. Custody battles can be so messy. He spoke about destroying my family's lives with the same casual ease as he discussed the weather. It was all just moves on a chessboard to him. The world is a dangerous place, my love, he said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. I am the only safe harbor you have. I am the only one who can protect you from the storms. All I ask in return is your loyalty, your love. Is that so much? He held the ring box out again, a demand disguised as an offering. The willow branches swayed around us, no longer a benediction but a curtain, closing us off from the world, sealing my fate. I looked from his face, so full of loving expectation, to the ring, a glittering shackle. I looked past him, at the river, flowing endlessly away to a freedom I would never know. The weight of his threat was absolute. He wasn't bluffing. He had the means, the patience, and the twisted morality to follow through on every single word. My defiance wouldn't save my family. It would doom them. He had engineered a choice where there was none, my freedom for their safety. A profound numbness settled over me. The fear, the rage, the desperation, they all receded, leaving behind a cold, hollow shell. This was acceptance. This was surrender. I slowly, mechanically, uncrossed my arms. I held out my left hand. It didn't even feel like my own. His smile was radiant, triumphant. He slid the new ring onto my finger. It was cold and heavy. Perfect, he breathed, leaning forward to kiss me. I turned my head at the last second, and his lips brushed my cheek. He didn't seem to mind. He took my refusal as a sign of lingering petulance, a charming flaw he would soon correct. He packed up the picnic, humming our song. I just stood there, watching the river, the new diamond throwing fireflies of light onto the grass. We drove back to our apartment, his apartment, my prison, in silence. He held my hand the entire way, his thumb stroking my skin. I felt nothing. He led me inside. Everything was as I'd left it, yet completely different. It was a museum of my former life, and I was its newest exhibit. Welcome home, he said, his voice filled with genuine warmth. He believed his own fiction completely. In his mind, he'd won me back through logic and love. He went to the kitchen to pour us more wine. I walked to the large window that overlooked the city. The lights twinkled, each one representing a life, a story. None of them were mine anymore. I heard him come up behind me. He wrapped his arms around my waist, pulling me back against his chest. He rested his chin on my shoulder. See? He whispered, looking out at the city with me. It's all ours. Everything I do is for us. For this. I didn't pull away. I just kept staring out the window. The numbness was beginning to thaw, replaced by a new, terrifying emotion. It wasn't hate. It wasn't fear. It was resolve. He thought he'd won. He thought he'd broken me. He thought my surrender was the end of the game. But as I stood there in his embrace, feeling the weight of the ring on my finger, I understood the only way out. I couldn't run. I couldn't fight him head on. The only way to defeat a system was to become a better part of it, to learn its rules, to exploit its weaknesses. He kissed my neck. "I love you," he murmured. I closed my eyes. When I opened them, my reflection in the window glass showed a woman who was finally perfectly calm. "I know," I said, my voice quiet, steady, and utterly devoid of emotion. "I love you too." It was the first lie I'd ever told him that he completely believed, and it would be the weapon I would use to destroy him. The game wasn't over. It had just begun, and for the first time, I knew the rules.